Hi, welcome to our presentation. We are covering healthcare, and specifically the Affordable Health Care Act. My name is Andrew,
My
I'm
name's Carolina.
I'm Joseph.
and let's get right into it. So let's talk about background info. One of the main purposes, or like current issues with healthcare, was the Affordable Health Care Act, which was also known as Obamacare, which was basically had three main goals. It was to make insurance easily available for Americans, for mostly for those who made low income wages, so like small workers and kind of struggling families. It was to also reform the private insurance market, because they basically had a monopoly over health insurance before the Affordable Health Care Act was passed, and to also support new medical practices that were meant to be cost effective and overall, good in the medical world. Uh, the ACTA had a rough start trying to get passed. It barely passed in 2010 with a vote of 219 to 212. Most Democrats had supported the act, while all Republicans who were in House uh, didn't vote for it. And ever since 2012, especially, there has been a continuous push against the Healthcare Act, mostly from conservatives. And now, if we switch over to the liberal view, in general, liberals most really want they want the government to help out. Specifically here with healthcare, is that they feel that healthcare is a right, and everyone deserves it and wants to be a lot like other major countries, especially out in Europe, with free healthcare. Um, we see that there's also many liberals who feel like the Affordable Healthcare Act doesn't do enough. They see that there needs to be more done, to improve our lives, especially in the healthcare. And but there is a large majority of people who see the Healthcare Act as the stepping stone needed to establish universal healthcare in the U.S., but there was still big backlash against it.
All right, now into the conservative view. So, in a nutshell, the conservatives did not want this passed because you know what that would mean? Their taxes are raised to pay for other people's health care. Now, who in the right minds would want that? I don't know, liberals. But they also felt like the government shouldn't be involved in the healthcare system at all. It kind of should be more like privately owned or controlled more by the states than the federal government. But otherwise, some of them were for it, but most otherwise don't feel like paying the extra money for others to get benefited as well. Not the legislation. Alright, so there were a few things passed. Recently, there was something brought up in June 22nd this year by the Democrats in the House of Representatives called the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Enhancement Act. Jesus. And its main purpose was to lower prescription drug prices, which is similar to Article 1 for another bill that was passed long ago. And it's to expand eligibility for more families and different types of income brackets to kind of mainly group them up together. And it was also supposed to patch something up called the family glitch, which would not give premium subsidies due to most employers having employee-only coverage. It was more of a loophole that was exploited against the people. And now there were three types of taxes affecting this, which is the Cadillac tax, the health insurance tax, and medical device tax, with only two of them actually being repealed this year. And there was talks during those talks. There were saying that there would be a huge decrease in revenue because no one's going to be paying up as much anymore. But it also decreased the amount of lawsuits on the federal government from states not being paid health insurance taxes that the government had owed. Yeah.
the National Federation of Independent Businesses versus Syllabus. I don't remember how to say that name. In 2012. Okay. In this lawsuit, like many states and companies sued the health department for like saying that the new law was unconstitutional, as it overstepped Congress's power to regulate commerce, and majority said like it fall into the article of like the majority of the opinion was that like it fell under the tax and spending clause of Article 1, and the dissenting is that it pressured people into like buying health insurance, and it instead of like regulating them. And it's like the fine for like not getting health insurance was more like a penalty rather than a tax. This gave like the federal government more power as it clears like power on like regulating interstate commerce, and under the clause, the Commerce Clause of Article 1. This was won by a 5-4 majority, which is like really close. They were really close. And so, and the next is Kings versus Mulberry. They sued because they didn't like 4 Virginians didn't want to like buy health insurance, and they argued that like to get like to not buy health insurance, like it has to cost more than 8% of their incomes, which they didn't pass under like the state exchange. But they argued that since Virginia was using the federal exchange, they couldn't get the tax, so they were exempt from getting health insurance. Congress said like, oh, that majority of the majority opinion for this case was like, oh, Congress didn't really specifically say who gets to decide if it's state exempt or federal exempt. That they specifically said it like in the law that there were tend to be both of them in the for the act. So the dissenting opinion said like, oh no, it says that like it's only for the state that can have tax credit, like, and it's specifically written there that it's the tax only involves the credit. Gave more power to the federal government as it allowed like federal exchange of money that taxpayers can subtract from their taxes owed by their government. That's kind of like you like oh hey, I have this, so like this is not part of my taxes. It's technically like subtracting taxes from your taxes, yeah. It was also a 6-3 majority.
All right, next let's talk about our opinions on this, on healthcare specifically. We feel like the federal and state government need to work together on most pertaining issues on healthcare. As of recently, it's only really been the federal government focusing on healthcare. And while many will fight against, the federal government being involved in that kind of life, it's the argument of what is the state doing that you don't want the federal government doing. And so it becomes that problem with both parties really. You know, and for that defining line of resolving this issue, we personally don't believe that nothing will really, you know, no party will settle. You know, conservatives, you know, obviously want to abolish the Affordable Health Care Act, as they've been doing since they've been trying to do since 2012, and don't really want to implement more, you know, free healthcare in our lives. They believe that, you know, it should be privatized. We shouldn't have to rely on the government. You know, most liberals would argue that there needs to be continuous push for healthcare. That it's what we need to better ourselves as a nation and to, you know, eventually implement universal healthcare. Probably the only thing really that could happen was that makes sense to me, at least, is that we keep things the way they are. I mean, for one thing, it appeals to liberals because we're keeping the Affordable Health Care Act, you know, but it also appeals to conservatives because we're not pushing forward for more, you know, healthcare acts. You know, it's just keeping it the same, and most of this power just seems to be reserved for the federal government. Maybe it just seems like that because it's only really been the federal government that's been doing these kind of laws. You know, it's Congress who has been, you know, passing, you know, the Affordable Health Care Act.
It's the taxes.
It's the taxes.
It's literally all it is.
And so, if you are watching this, feel free to applause.
Yay!
And then the next slide is our resources. Woo!
I'm keeping on the applause slide, by the way, just out of spite. Because I think trying to get conservatives and liberals trying to agree on something, that's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. That's why I said there's like no way it's going to happen. That's why I said the only reason it could happen is probably keeping the same.
That's true. Unless they just
And
completely reform it.
Yeah.
Complete reform on everything. No one's going to agree on anything. It's going to be a stalemate.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, that's fine. I mean, there's benefits.
Such as?
And healthcare insurance.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
And another benefit, what if you can argue would be like for the Conservative Party, was that you're not getting higher taxes.
Yummy. Free money.
Free money.
Free money that I don't have to pay.
You don't pay anything, Joe.